Okay. We're finishing chapter 5 today. It's our last class of the season to be picked up next year. And that'll bring us maybe till Purim. It might bring us till Purim 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's possible. Depends on how quickly we go through it. We were talking, just checking everything, just a minute. Pasuk, what pasuk did we get to? Every time I say just mark, what pasuk you got to? So I think we got to Haman coming out, right? People remember that? Haman came out of the first party. I don't know why I'm blanking on this. Came out of the first party with Ahasuerus and Esther. And he's like at the pinnacle of his success. Okay, let's go back over that. We spoke about that. Ahasuerus says, I'll give you up to half my kingdom, right? We spoke about that. That the middle, right, that the halfway is actually Israel and the temple. Okay, we got that. Good. So we're on. Okay, so we did that. Informed by the queen. So let's just go back to verse 9. Vayetze Haman bayom hahu. Haman went out that day. Sameach v'tov lev. Happy and cheerful, I would say tov lev. Joyful, cheerful. So again, let's count. Let's talk about, enumerate. Why would Haman be on top of the world? This is the audience participation.
He was invited.
He was invited. Ellen?
He thinks that he's going to be the recipient of honors from Ahasuerus.
Right. Oh, that's interesting. We hadn't thought about that. That it's starting with Esther, but maybe because he's invited to this private audience, even though somebody here said that when Esther invites Haman, so from Haman's point of view, it seems like this is fantastic, only I'm invited, but maybe Esther is already trying to make Ahasuerus a little bit jealous. So it all depends on your perspective of what it means to be invited. Milton, what did you want to say?
Well, Haman has some competitors for important positions at the court. And he's flattered that those competitors are now a mile in the rearview mirror.
That's a good way to say it too. I think that's a good way to think about it, that in the court, everybody's jostling each other to be the one most in favor. That's a really good way to say it. So good. These are really good insights. Appreciate that. We know he has money. How do we know he has money? How do we know that? That's in the text, not here. Remember what he offered Ahasuerus in order to annihilate the Jews? He said, I'll give you 10,000 kikar kesef. I'll give you 10,000 pieces of silver. That's somebody who has a lot of money. What else? Let me just think. He has the king's signet ring. That's pretty powerful. Everybody has to bow down to him, right? He's literally puffed up the most, almost anybody, unless you're the king. I don't know if it's such a treat to be the king, except that everybody bestows honor on you, but you're also in danger of being killed, and you're in danger of.
And he's narcissistic and somewhat delusional. So
tell me, who is Haman?
Haman, yeah.
Oh, can you say where you're getting that from? I'm not saying he isn't narcissistic and delusional, but why would you say it?
Because of the way he behaves, as he thinks everything is for him as he approaches Ahasuerus, and it's all about him.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, we're going to see that more.
Yes, I was just going to say, jumping ahead.
You're thinking of Susanna, who I adore, is bringing me tea. Thank you so much. My favorite. Oh yeah, one of my favorites with caffeine, of course. With caffeine. Is that even a question? What's the question? Okay. So yeah, you're thinking ahead to chapter 6, which is the next one. But that's an interesting one. I'm just going to write that down. Narcissistic. I like that. I don't think we use that word. and delusional. I love that. Let's keep that in the back of our mind. Yes, because he's seeing it from a certain perspective, not realizing all the infighting and political, of course, we believe that it's God's hand who's going to make it tip the balance, but okay. So we continued on to so then when he sees Mordechai b'sha'ar hamelech, so it could be because he sees him in the gate, because why do you have that place of honor? V'lo kam v'lo zam mimenu, he doesn't get up or move, so that could be because he's not bowing down to him. Another interpretation of Midrashic is that he's sitting and expounding with the scholars, meaning the remnants of the Sanhedrin, the high court. And by Haman al Mordechai Chayma. I think that we said last time that this just feels like anti-Semitism, literally, coming in full blown, whatever. Yes, Lance.
Okay, this is a moment in the text that really is open to rabbinic and Israeli and Greek interpretation. So the Greeks see this as a Greek failing to bow to a Persian. But I thought that was an excellent interpretation until I came up with a better one, or I heard a better one. And that is that at this moment, the Jews are victims. And through the next number of moments, the Jews are victims. But Mordechai is, in effect, standing up to Haman. And at that moment, the Jews become heroes. Mordechai is the hero.
Goosebumps. That's so beautiful. That's so beautiful. We think of Esther. I always think of Esther. Remember we said Vatilbash Esther Malchut, that she donned royalty. I really love that. Lance, that's just awesome. Continue.
Thank you. You have to look at, I don't want to, get ahead of you, but if you look at what happens to the Jews, they suddenly become powerful at the end of the Megillah.
But you think this is a turning point? So there's a turning
Yes.
point for Esther in saving the Jews, and also, by the way, standing up for her people, right? They
Yes.
both stand up. So that's actually really nice. I think that's a nice way to look at it, that we don't just have a hero who's a woman, we have a hero who's a man.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
so I want to go back to something I said before. One of the reasons that I find Esther such a powerful figure is that she's a person with no agency or very little agency, and yet she's still able to find a way to take authority, power maybe, but authority for sure, which I find to be an amazing model. And I've read it about, for example, the Midrash of Nachshon. Remember the Midrash of Nachshon ben Aminadav? What's the Midrash? Who remembers? A Nachshon moment. People say that sometimes. Somebody once said there's a Nachshon neat moment for a girl, for a woman.
Wasn't he
yeah,
was the
Milton.
first one to
Alice,
walk?
again? Sorry, what?
Wasn't he the first one to walk into the sea?
Is that what you remember, Milton?
Yeah.
So the Midrash says, I get it's a Midrash, that they're all fighting, that there's one group who says, turn back to Mitzrayim. I'm talking about standing at the Yam Suf. The water's in front of them. The Egyptians are behind them. We don't know what to do. We call to God. Nothing's happening. One group, there's a Midrash that says it beautifully, that one group says, let's go back to Mitzrayim. Another group says, I can't remember. Another group says, we'll divide. I don't know. They're all discussing it, and everybody has a different idea. Nachshon, who was the prince of Yehuda, maybe? I'm trying to remember. He walks into the water. He just does it. He takes authority where he wasn't given authority. And lo and behold, when he gets up to his neck, and as if he's not fearful, I don't know if they know how to swim, God is like, you showed me that you were willing to sacrifice, or at least you're willing to be courageous and do something. And you're not just lying here waiting for me to do it. You took the first step. And I think we've discussed that, Karen. Is that something you've come back to again and again, that God and other people here as well, that God waits for sometimes for us to take the first step.
Yeah.
So I once took a class, or I heard a lecture about comparing Nachshon and Esther, about people who didn't have agency, didn't have authority, weren't given authority, they took authority. Now, I want to go back to what Lance said, where he says that the Jews at that time until here, maybe the Jews are victims, because all we hear about is this guy named Haman. There's a king who was agreed to annihilate, right? Esther's not allowed to even, well, until now, she wasn't allowed to even say what nation she's from. We're assuming that it'll be negative for her or for her people if she said that she's from the Jews. So they're victims. And yet somebody was willing to stand up. And I want to say, I received an email from a woman in our community whose son stood up in some setting, maybe a convention, I'm not sure what it was exactly. And there were a lot of pro-Palestinian, a lot of, negative things for Jews. And he was willing to stand up and say his piece. And she said, I'm so proud of him and I'm so worried. Okay. But this person is following Haman's lead and Nachshon's lead in different settings. Okay. So what happens? Haman al Mordechai chema, verse 9. Did we talk about why he's so angry? I think maybe that goes to the narcissism. I feel like somebody spoke about that last time. Why is he so angry? It's like, I think that goes to, maybe that's where we see the narcissism, Karen. Because if somebody is so on top of the world and you allow one person to pop that so quickly. Okay.
Yeah.
So what does he do? Vayitapak, and he holds back. He restrains himself from acting in the moment. There are many midrashim why, but for now, leave it alone. I mean, I think we discussed it. Vayavon, but he came to his home. Vayishlach, he sent and he brought the ones who love him, the ones who support him. Ohavav, vet zeresh ishto. And so that we discussed that Zeresh, this is where the Midrash gets that she was an amazingly crafty and wise woman, because maybe women were not always called to strategy meetings, but he knew that he could count on Zeresh having a plan. And we will see that Zeresh is the one who says things. And so he calls his advisors, who assumedly are all men, and his wife Zeresh. Vayisaper lehem Haman. So I think we got up to 11. Haman told them, what did he tell them? Kivod oshro. No, we did talk about this. The honor of his kivod oshro means, I guess, the glory of his riches. Virov banav, how many children he has, that the king appointed him, which is interesting. It means that all this happened when he hadn't been home for a few days, clearly, because he's telling them that the king raised him up over everybody else, and he's the top. And he continues in 12 to say that Esther, the queen Esther, when Achashverosh calls her, he doesn't always refer to her as the queen, but Haman is. And the only person she invited except for the king is me, and I'm invited again tomorrow. Okay, so remember what we said about this, that he was giving suggestions of how to annihilate Mordechai from all these things. Pay somebody, bribe somebody, my kids will do it. Maybe Achashverosh will do, maybe because I've been elevated, I could kill him. Okay.
I have a question.
Mhm.
Why was there a need to have 2 dinners?
We did talk about that, but let's go over that. That's a great
Oh,
question.
okay.
No, that's fine. We did. I think that question was raised then. So Marvin, did you have something to say about that? Why there were 2?
No,
You didn't say something. We
here.
spoke about that. Oh, you weren't here last week. Sorry. Right. Hard to keep track.
I
So we
was
spoke
with
about that.
family
What do
out of
you
town.
think, Alice? Why don't we say what you think?
Well, by having 2 dinners and him being the only one invited besides the king, he feels even probably more elevated than just 1 dinner.
So she's like leading him astray even more, right? And again, on the flip side, maybe making Achashverosh jealous even more, or at least planting a seed.
Isn't that a little unwise to make your husband jealous of another man?
When he's the king.
Right. Particularly. That didn't seem like a good strategy to me.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting point. I don't know. Any
And when
thoughts?
you look at Greek tragedy, in
Yeah.
order for something to be tragic, you have to fall from a high position. And I think that that's what she's doing to him. she's helping to elevate him so that the fall hurts him even more.
Hmm.
You know, it's almost a calculated thing.
Yeah, I think it is calculated. I agree. So what we said was, in addition to what you just said, that when she's in the throne room, of course, she's not going to ask, because you don't ask a question like that in front of all his advisors, and right, because then he'd be embarrassed or shamed or pushed into saying something to king. And she would really be running that risk. So instead, she kind of, I guess, you know, you could think of it as a romantic setting where you soften someone. So clearly she prepared, or her maidservants prepared, you know, fancy stuff for him, maybe romantic candlelight, whatever that is, although that seems a little odd if Haman is invited as well. And then when she's asked the first night, that I think is the crux of the question, Alice. Why do it too? So what the commentators said was that it's about like, you know, heightening the tension and saying it's going to happen. This was so lovely. We had our time. I didn't want to bring it up yet. I just wanted to enjoy this time with you, honey, hubby, and Haman, who's number 2. But tomorrow I'm going to give you exactly what, like, she didn't string it along too much. Maybe it was exactly the correct balance. And who knows, Alice, if in the moment she thought that. We don't know. You know how sometimes in the moment you feel the moment? And maybe
Yeah.
in the moment she realized she had room to do it a little bit more, heighten the tension a little bit more, not string him along, is not exactly what I mean to say, but pull him along, Ahasuerus, just a little bit more. Maybe that's what happened. Maybe just in the moment she felt, I can play this for another night. Maybe she was nervous. Who knows? Maybe she got nervous and got a teeny bit of cold feet, but she knows that tomorrow she's going to have to do it. So I guess all of those are possibilities. Do any of them resonate with you, Alice? Do any of those resonate with you?
Yeah, all of them.
Yeah, right. They resonate with me too, meaning we don't really know, but they all feel very human. I mean, we
Mhm.
don't see Esther as a cold, calculating person, but rather she's trying to be strategic and use her feminine wiles or whatever she has at her disposal. She doesn't have so much, but she's able to do it. Okay.
To what extent, I have another question. To what
Sure.
extent did Mordecai have any input on these dinners?
It sounds like he didn't. From the text, not the power, but the action moved, the seat of the action literally like was handed over from Mordecai to Esther. And he trusted her. Maybe
I mean,
never.
there was no conversation in the text.
And there was lots of conversation when he was
Right.
trying to convince her back and forth.
To
Remember
do
that?
it, right.
Remember that I was telling you about that steward who goes back and forth in the play? It was so cute the way she did it, back and forth and sending messages back and forth. And I think that she did that one on her own, Alice. Yeah, Lance.
Mordecai is a convicted felon. He's going to be hanged, and I
What?
don't think he
Mordecai?
has. Yeah, Mordecai is going to be hanged
Who was he? What was he convicted felon? Where'd you get that?
because he's not. That's a joke. But
Oh,
if
okay.
you look at the text, you'll see that. Let's see. Okay, and the thing pleased Haman, and he caused the gallows to be made. The gallows are made for Mordecai. So Mordecai
That's not a
committed this
convicted
crime.
felon. That's not a convicted felon. That's Haman
That
trying
was
to kill him.
a joking reference to
Oh,
our peerless unleader. No, that was just a joke. But all I'm saying is that Mordecai was convicted without a trial, and
Like Haman,
he is
yeah.
sentenced to death.
Okay.
He's on death row.
Yeah,
So
but
I
what
can't see how he could have any input whatsoever
No,
at
I
these.
disagree with you. Sorry, respectfully, because they had a whole conversation that she agreed. He was sitting in Shar HaMelech. She could have sent the same guy, the same messenger, back and forth to Mordecai and say, "This is what I'm planning on doing. What do you think?" And Mordecai would have said, "I don't think that's a good idea. Why don't you do it this way?" The same way they had the exchange of messages before the party, right? And sorry, before she went to the throne room, there was time for them to have messages. He was sitting in Sha'ar HaMelech. I'm sorry that I slightly disagree. So I think he was free. Nobody locked him up. He was convicted in Haman's mind, but he wasn't actually, and at least that's what.
No,
Okay.
but Haman built a gallows. The gallows is
Yeah, but
real.
what does that have to do with Mordechai and Esther?
What
Think
you're
of-
doing,
think
what
of
you're
your
suggesting,
timeline. No, but
with
where's
all
your timeline?
with all due respect, what you're suggesting, you're taking away power from Esther.
No, that's separate.
No.
You said that they didn't have time to do it. All I was saying is, of course, they had time to do it because Esther was in the palace and Mordechai was in the gate. That's all I
Right.
said.
But is
I
there anything in the
agree.
text that reproduces this
No, we said that.
conversation?
We said, no, agreed. There's nothing in the text. All I was saying is that
Okay.
they could have. Yes, Ruby.
Okay, I
Yeah,
go along
Ruby.
with that.
Okay.
I go along with that.
From the start, was Esther's confrontation a dinner because quote unquote dinners are a woman's realm? She didn't have a different kind of place or situation to have any kind of a confrontation. So there's that our understanding of why there was a dinner.
That makes sense. I like that. That makes so much sense. Like he's seeing her in her role as a woman, as his queen. Oh, finally, she's doing something maybe,
And
not
that's how
finally,
that's how she also would see herself in any kind of
as
you know.
opposed to military, you mean?
military, verbal, whatever. I'm not sure what else she could have done, but
Yep.
It was a
And
dinner.
yet, Ruby, like, I don't know if the Megillah had stopped after the conversation with Mordechai and Esther, where he says to her, and who knows, mi yodea im la'et kazot, who knows if this is the reason you're in the palace? And it didn't continue. Let's say you didn't know anything after chapter 4. I don't know if you would have said, even if you knew that Esther agreed, if I asked a random person, what do you think she did? I don't know if they would have come up with, well, she invited Ahasuerus to a dinner. Like it's obvious to us, but it's very hard to subtract our knowledge of what happens in the Megillah. But I agree with you that it makes the most sense. What else could she really have done? I don't know. Maybe she could have sent something to poison Haman. I mean, there are other things that could have happened, right? She could have theoretically invited and then slipped. Anybody here see that Danny Kaye really awesome scene where he does the chalice in the palace and the poison and the pellet? No, you got to look it up. It's so funny. He was such a gifted person. Inspector General. It's called, he thinks it's called the Inspector General. I don't know, but it's hilarious scene where he talks about the chalice and the palace and the poison and the pellet with the poison. And they get, anyway, but that just made me think of that. But I happen to love Danny Kaye. But that, like, she could have done other things. That is what she decided to do, to unmask Haman, basically, in front of Ahasuerus. But when we get, you're going to see, we're not there yet. But when she actually gets to that place, it's more, there are more layers to it than just unmasking Haman, but I'm saving that, for when we get there. I'm not going to reveal everything now. We'll see. Okay. Good. Go on to 13. No, we did 13. Oh, let's do it again. The Cholze and all of this, Einenu Shoverli, is not worth anything to me. Anytime I see Mordechai, the Jew, sitting B'Shar HaMelech, sitting in the gate of the king. So, yeah, it could be that it's because he's sitting, right? Why did he say the word sitting? We're on verse 13. He's sitting and he doesn't get up and bow to him. And it could be sitting in Sha'ar HaMelech, that he gets a seat at the table. Why is he sitting in the gate? He's a Jew. I don't want him there. He doesn't deserve it. Remember, Haman wants to annihilate all the Jews. It's just so hard to hear that because it just resonates so deeply now that people just want to kill us because we're Jewish. They just hate us just because, what? It's like, okay, you have green eyes. Like, I hate you. I have green eyes. So like, it's so unfathomable and difficult and makes so little sense and is so hard, right? There's always a reason, I get that, or the reason given, but it masks an actual underlying hatred, which we see from Haman.
And it's so deep because he says, nothing is worth anything to me except
Hey,
annihilating the Jews. So it's so deep, as we see now.
yeah, exactly. Okay. Calls it, let me just see. Mordechai Esther 24. One second, I have something that I put here. Oh, this is, okay. It's complicated. It's a whole complicated gematria. I'm going to leave that alone. Okay, so what happens? Vatomer lo zeresh ishto. So she leads the pack. She comes up with a plan. Vichol ohavav. So it's interesting. Vatomer. Anybody here who knows Hebrew? Do you know which how do you call it? Which goof? Which gender? No, not yes, but no. You're right. It is gender, but it's also is it singular or plural? It's one. So Marvin is showing me, you can't see him. He's saying, he's whispering to me. It's feminine and singular. So even though it says that in English, you can't say it, but in the Hebrew, Vatomer lo zeresh ishto. She said to him, who? Zeresh ishto, his wife Zeresh, which is funny, right? Because we know Zeresh is his wife. It already said that. I wonder why. Anybody have an idea? Why is the Megillah repeating that? I'm just curious. I don't have an answer. Not yet. I mean, we just read that Zeresh was his wife. It wasn't a different Zeresh.
She doesn't have an identity outside of that.
Oh, nice. Cool. Yes. Yeah. One second. Yeah, that's great, Ellen. Yeah, Marvin.
It's like my cousin Vinny and Melissa Tomei.
Wait. This is important. I want you to see him.
When Marissa Tomei stomps her foot and said, "My biological clock is going.
Okay.
It's ticking."
Yeah.
This is her way of saying, "Listen to me."
Oh, nice. Oh, very nice. Gave me goosebumps. So even though she's his wife, like this is where she takes control. Very nice. So maybe at that time it's like she's secondary. Very often women are secondary, but she's Ishton, but she's taking control. So she's taking front and center. So both of them are really nice answers. Thank you. Beautiful. So that's why it's singular. Also, I think 1 second, Lance, that I think it means she came up with the idea and they all went, that's a great idea. Yeah, Lance, what do you want to say?
I have the incident with Danny Kaye.
Oh, okay.
Click on the blue and it's a video and it comes up fast.
Love this
great.
research assistant. So guess what? If we have time, we'll watch it at the end. Thank you. Because it
You're
might just leave us laughing.
It will leave you laughing.
Why does it use the word ohavav?
Those who love him?
Yeah,
That's a great question. You're right. Why does it use ohavav?
ahava, right.
Ohavav.
Ohavav.
But maybe the ones who fawn on him. Yeah, but we have it here in the chat, so we'll be able to watch it. We're going to leave time for that. I don't think I wanted to cite 6, but I decided not to. I don't think we're going to cite her. So if we finish 5 early, we'll have an opportunity to do that. So she comes up with it. Oh, sorry, we were back to Ohavav.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, it could be those who truly loved him, and it could be those who fawn on him or feel loved. I'm just thinking that out loud. I had that question before, but I didn't bring it up. Maybe because I didn't have an answer. But because I think that's the point, is that every word in the Megillah was thoughtfully picked. Because it could have said, what could it have said instead of Ohavav?
Advisors.
Yoatzav.
Yoatzav. Yeah.
It could have said his advisors. What is Ohavav? And what does that mean, Ohavav? So is it the ones who are the yes men?
Right.
What did they say? Or what did she say? Yeah, asu eitz, they should prepare a tree. Gavoa 50 amah, 50 meters, 50 not meters, cubits high. Uva boker, and in the morning, Emor lamelech, tell the king, v'yitlu et Mordechai elav. They will hang Mordechai on the tree. Uvoim hamelech el mishteh, and you'll come with the king to the mishteh, to the feast. Sameach, happy. That was a great idea. He loved it, and they made the tree. So I'm going to read you a midrash now. The midrash explains that why. Okay, one second. Midrash Rabbah said Haman had 365 advisors. Kind of cool, maybe like one for every day of the month of the year. But none could give him counsel as well as his wife Zeresh. What great wisdom was there in her idea to make a gallows? Any thought, by the way, before I read the midrash? Okay. She says like this man about whom you are inquiring, meaning mortal. Yeah, you have some. No. Oh, nice. Public display. Oh, well done. That's not in the midrash. Very well done. So public display, that's a great answer. I like that. Public display. Beautiful. Yep. Can't ignore a 50 cubit high tree. If he is of the seed of the Jews, you will not prevail against him unless you contrive something against him which no one of his nation has ever experienced. If you throw him into a fiery furnace, Hananiah and his companions had already been delivered from this. So actually, I think the midrash says that Abraham was delivered from a fire furnace, but that was a midrash. Of course, this is also a midrash. But I think in the time of Daniel, is that when it was? Hananiah's time, Daniel, I think, Daniel, and they were delivered from a fiery furnace. If into a lion's den, Daniel has already escaped from one. If you make him sit on hot irons, Menashe had already prayed and been answered by God and escaped from that. If you banish him into the wilderness, his ancestors have already been fruitful and multiplied in the wilderness. Hi. Hello, Carol. Hello, Robert. And they underwent many trials in the wilderness, withstood them all, and were delivered. If you put out his eyes, there was Shimshon, Samson, who killed a great many of the Philistines when he was blind. Hang him, therefore, on a gallows, for we have not found one of his people who was delivered from that. I thought that was really such an interesting midrash. Any thoughts about that midrash? For or against?
I like it, but I like better that it was public.
Marvin, you won over the midrash.
Yes, Marvin.
It does, right? It actually, Marvin with the V. My husband is Martin, and this is Marvin. By the way, we once met somebody, Martin and I, on the way home from shul, and Marvin happened to be coming to us. And somebody from the shul, I introduced them, and he called my husband Martin Marvin for a long time because he couldn't figure out which one of those two men was Marvin, which one was Martin. I kept having to say, no, that's Martin. Marvin was the other guy, which is very funny. But I agree. I think
I like that.
Right. So beautiful. I love that. I just have a question. What is the midrash trying to teach us here? We always want to ask that question. First of all, I find it really interesting that Midrash thinks that Zeresh, Haman, everybody know about our God, respect God. We're going to see later on that Zeresh says, well, once you've started going downhill with a Jew, you're not going to make it. Does that mean God is on their side? That means that they know our history. Maybe also the Midrash comes basically to remind us of our history, about how many different ways and times that God has saved us, can save us. Maybe that's also one of the reasons. God has the capability of saving in any instance. And if anybody has another thought, I'm happy to hear it. Although I agree that I think Marvin wins hands down here on a logical level, not on a midrashic level, which is fine because it's really pshat what he said. Pshat often wins over midrash. Okay. Oh, also drowning. That's another one, but it's not in here. Try to drown them. No, God saved Moshe and the Jews from the Yam Suf that we had just discussed with Nachshon. Okay. So interesting, if we look again at the end of Pasuk 14, which is the last verse in this chapter, look at somebody want to read in Hebrew the last two words.
Bishar HaMelech.
The last two words of chapter 5.
of chapter 5. Adavar lifnei Haman,
The last two words in Hebrew.
vayas ha'etz,
Yeah, what does that mean by Yas Ha'etz?
and he made the gallows.
Correct. Now, what did it say before? It says when Zeresh and Ohabav says Yasu Eitz, they shall build a tree, because like you bring in the tree builders or you bring in whoever does it. Isn't that interesting that it says Vayas Ha'etz? He made
He
it?
did it.
No, Marvin doesn't
That's
agree.
not what it
Wait
means.
1 second. What?
Vayas ha'etz means the eights made it. Vayas et ha'etz.
No,
means
that's,
he
I
made
beg
it.
to disagree. Vayas means and he made Ha'etz, with or without
Well,
et.
it's the descriptive.
No, it's not. You think it's the passive form, I think you're saying. Yeah, Vayas. I mean,
So it should have said Vayas et ha'etz.
I mean, the English
it's
said,
the word et, yeah.
the English does say, and he had the gallows made.
Uh-huh. Okay, so that's a middle ground between it. That Marvin's saying it should said Vayas et ha'et. So it works either way. Another way of saying is that he made it himself. Another one is he sent out the command to have it made. Yeah, and here, by the way, in the one I'm using, the Dibar Tabam, it says, and he made the gallows. Interesting. Yes, Lance, and then I think.
Well, I just want to point out that Haman is making a gallows for himself.
I know,
And that's a
right?
kind of
He
irony
doesn't know
here.
that. Yeah, there is an irony there. Yes, I agree. 100%. That's very nice. Yes. Oh, and guess what? Whoa, nice one, Lance. Look what it says here. The word further on in chapter 6. Okay, listen to this. This is Hebrew. In chapter 6, when it comes to the king, he comes to say that he wants to ask him to hang Mordechai on the tree, asher hechin lo, which he prepared for him. But the Gemara says, what does that mean, prepared for him? It could have been for him for Haman, or for him for Achashverosh, or him for Mordechai. But the Gemara says, no, which he prepared for himself unwittingly, which he didn't even know. So very nice. You follow the Gemara, or the Gemara follows you, however you want to look at it. But we'll see that in chapter 6. We'll go over it again, and just say this is Haman or Mordechai. And chapter 6 is, by the way, the one that begins melech. That is like my favorite chapter. It's also the first chapter that I ever read in Megillat Esther, and I love it. And it has really, I think we have a lot we can learn from it. And I'm very much looking forward to continuing this conversation. And now, before we say goodbye, we're going to have a smile. So just a moment. Give me a moment, people.
Go ahead, skip a garbage day. This smart kitchen bin takes weeks and weeks to fill up, and it never smells. If I die.
Give me a moment. I'm pulling it up. Share sound. Nope, that didn't work. Hold on 1 second, people. I'm going to get there. Give me a moment. Just a minute. Oh, that's not working. Try this. Okay, and try. Yeah. Okay. Now I hope it'll work now.
Yes.
Just pray that I die bravely.
You'll not die. You'll not have to fight him. Griswold dies as he drinks the toast.
What?
Listen, I'll put a pellet of poison in one of the vessels.
Which one?
The one with the figure of a pestle.
The vessel with the pestle.
Yes, but you don't want the vessel with the pestle. You want the chalice from the palace.
I don't want the vessel with the pestle. I want the chalice from the what?
The chalice from the palace. It's a little crystal chalice with the figure of a palace.
Does the chalice from the palace have the pellet with the poison?
No, the pellet with the poison's in the vessel with the pestle.
Oh, the pestle with the vessel.
The vessel with the pestle.
What about the palace from the chalice?
Not the palace from the chalice from the palace.
Where's the pellet with the poison?
In the vessel with the pestle.
Don't you see? The pellet with the poison's in the vessel with the pestle.
The chalice from the palace has the brew that is true.
So easy, I can say it.
Well, then you fight him.
Listen carefully. The pellet with the poison's in the vessel with the pestle. The chalice from the palace has the brew that is true.
Oh, the pellet with the poison's in the vessel with the pestle. The chalice from the palace has the brew that is true.
Good man.
Just remember that.
The pellet with the poison. The pellet with the poison is in the vessel with the pestle. The chalice from the palace has the true that is brewed. Brew that is true. The pellet with the poison's in the vessel with the pestle. The chalice from the palace has the true that is brewed. Brew that is true. The chessel with the palace. The palace with the... Look out! The pestle with... The pellet with the poison's in the vessel with the pestle. The palace from the chalice is the brew that is blue. No. The pellet with the poison's in the vessel with the pestle. The pellet with the plip... The pellet with the poisons in the vessel with the plazzle. The plazzle with the vessel. The vessel with the plazzle is the plazzle...
His Majesty's waiting.
The pestle with the toilet.
And take your helmet.
And the pellet with the... Thank you. The pellet with the poison is from the chalice with the plazzle. I've got it. The pellet with the poison's in the vessel with the pestle. The chalice from the palace has the brew that is true, right?
Right, but there's been a change. They broke the chalice from the palace.
They broke the chalice from the palace?
And replaced it with a flagon.
A flagon.
With the figure of a dragon.
Flagon with a dragon.
Right.
But did you put the pellet with the poison in the vessel with the pestle?
No. The pellet with the poison's in the flagon with the dragon. The vessel with the pestle has the brew that is true.
The pellet with the poison's in the flagon with the dragon. The vessel with the pestle has the brew that is true.
Just remember that.
Yes, thank you very much. The pellet with the chasley. The pellet with the poison is in the pasley with the chazzle. Just remember that. The poison with the plesley is the chazzle...
The pellet with the poison's in the flagon with the dragon. The pestle with the pestle... The pistol with the fist.
No. The pellet with the poisley is the chalice with the...
Vessel with the pestle. The vessel with the pestle has the brew, that is true.
Right, don't forget it.
Pellet with the dragon. No.
The pellet with the poison is in the flagon with the chalice.
The poison is in the dragon with the pestle.
The chazzle is in the poisley with the flagellus with the flagless.
The pellet with the dragons and the pestle with the poison.
The pesley with the poison is
dragon
the plazzle with the pleebless. The poisley with the plazzle is the plazzle with the plausel. The chalice with the flagon with the chalice. The poison with the flagon is the chalice with the poison.
The knights will face the king.
The poison with the chalice. The palace with the poison is the chalice with the poison with the chalice is the chalice.
They will approach the royal pavilion.
Pellet with the poisons in the flagon with the dragon.
The vessel with the pestle has the brew that is true.
Oh, no, you've got the wrong one.
Watch what boiled eggs do to your body.
Oh, be quiet.
Have you ever?
That
Thank
was
you.
excellent.
Thank you so much for humoring me. That was just perfect. Thank you so much, Lance. And thank you everyone for, look, I'm looking around, people have smiles. That's what we needed. Say goodbye to our Marvin, who comes in sometimes in person. And I just want to thank you. I want you to know that literally every single week, when I would finish teaching here or discussing, and I'd walk into the office to thank Susanna, bring her back the cup of tea, and I'd be like, I love teaching this class. Like every time I felt so.
And we love having you as our tutor.
I just found it was
So stimulating, so
me
wonderful.
too, and thank you. And I found like I didn't know what to expect, but I knew as soon as the topic came up for me, that's what I wanted to discuss, because it also gives us a little bit of space to talk about what's hurting us right now.
Right.
It takes a text that we know, and it's so I really want to finish. I want to go back. I feel like coming to Purim so prepared. And then we'll take another text after Purim next year. We'll think of a different text that we'll do. I love when, I think my favorite way to do this class is when we talk about something and we take a text that I can research, but that we have discussions. I find that just makes it so rich. So we'll think about it. I have a lot of time to think about what the next thing will be, but in the meantime, Just want to thank everybody for wonderful
Thank
learning
you,
this
thank
year.
you.
You.
Thank you.
And,
Yeah.
We'll
Richa,
miss
we will be
you.
having, thank you. Well, we will be having summer series, which this is our 3rd or 4th year. Can't remember, 3rd year, maybe 4th, when we're doing modern Jewish thinkers. So
Is that Zoom?
that'll be, I don't know if it's only, oh, it'll for sure be Zoom. I just don't know if it's
Okay.
also in person. You don't have to worry about that.
No,
It'll be-
Helen would be getting that email.
You know, you can get our emails if you.
I
want.
would love to.
No problem. We'll do offline. Please reach out. I'll tell you what. we need.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. So we'll have modern Jewish thinkers. I'm thinking I usually take one woman, one man. One year I did Rabbi Sachs. So everybody, there's Heschel. There's so many. And every time we just pick 2 different ones. I'm really thinking about, I'm actually thinking of taking a book that I wanted to read, and this will make me read it. Like this will say, no, you got to do it to teach a class. So then for sure you'll do it. One of the books that have been on my, to my go-to list, and maybe do it. Like Carol, by the way, just did a book club yesterday by Connections, and she was just phenomenal. I mean, I wasn't there, but she was phenomenal. The women were like glowing when they came out of there. And so I'm thinking of doing something like that. I think that'll be
Which book was it?
Carol?
The Secret of Sunflowers.
The Secret of Sunflowers.
I
It's
heard
about
I
how
feel like
Vincent
reading
van
it.
Gogh became famous. It's historical fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Carol
I
belongs.
wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, of all of this series posted on the website, because I missed so many. I'm sorry for being late.
Oh, these, yeah, they should be posted. And if they're not, then yeah.
Yeah, posted.
If they're not, then we can, well, I'm just gonna stop